air in the courtroom was suffocating, heavy with a silence that carried more weight than any words could. All eyes were on Jackie Christie, who stood tall at the center like a storm about to swallow everything in its path. There were no tears, no hesitation, just a fury that burned so bright it seemed to set the very walls on fire. Her chest rose and fell sharply, her breathing audible enough to echo through the chamber, each inhale sounding like the wind before a hurricane. The judge had barely lifted his gaze when Jackie slammed a thick stack of documents onto the polished table with the force of 20 years of betrayal pressing down on her. The sound cracked like thunder, startling reporters and forcing cameras to jolt against their tripods. And then, in a voice that shook not from weakness but from rage, sharpened. Over decades, she roared, "I'm suing both of them, Doug and Malaysia." The gasp that followed was unlike anything a courtroom had ever held before. Phones slipped from hands, fingers froze above keyboards. Even the court clerk, usually robotic, blinked in disbelief as the words cut through the air. Doug Christie's face drained of all color, his lips trembling as though the blood had abandoned him entirely. Beside him, Malaysia Pargo sat unfazed, calm, her silky blouse flawless, her body language almost taunting. She tilted her chin slightly upward, smirking in a way that said she had expected this moment, maybe even prepared for it. That smirk alone fanned the flames already consuming Jackie. Her voice cracked again, not from fragility, but from a storm roaring inside of her chest. "You stole my family, my dignity, my entire identity. You think you can play me like a fool and walk away clean?" She shifted her piercing gaze from the trembling man she once called husband to the woman she once embraced as a sister. Her words sliced the room like glass. "You seduced my husband, humiliated me in front of the world, and now you want to bury the truth under fake peace and staged apologies." Doug tried to salvage something, anything. "Jackie, this is a misunderstanding," he muttered, his voice barely holding. But before his plea could breathe, Jackie snapped like a whip. "Shut up!" she roared, her finger trembling but steady in its aim at him. "Your lies have left scars on my soul." Gasps circled the benches. Malaysia, unfazed, leaned back comfortably, crossing her legs with elegance, lips curling into a soft but poisonous smile. "Telling the truth isn't theft, Jackie," she murmured, her voice dripping with venom. "But your 20-year performance, that was the real scam." The curtain finally fell. The judge's gavel came down with a sharp crack. "Order! This court will investigate every claim, fraud, emotional distress, defamation, and if proven true, the consequences will be severe." The declaration shifted the air. This was no longer a hearing. It had turned into a battlefield where love, betrayal, and secrets buried under reality TV glamour were colliding in front of the world. Jackie wasn't suing for sympathy. She wasn't begging for closure. She was suing for redemption, for the name she built while others plotted to erase it. And she wasn't leaving without a war. This was supposed to be routine, a quiet hearing over minor property disputes. The media outside had no clue of the firestorm brewing behind those double doors. But Jackie Christie did not walk in like a woman attending court. She walked in like a soldier on her final march, carrying a thick leather folder clutched to her chest like a loaded weapon. No bodyguards, no entourage, no makeup team behind her. Just her rage, and her receipts. Doug was already seated, head low, suit tight on his trembling frame, eyes darting around like a man waiting for a noose. And next to him, perfectly, unbothered, Malaysia Pargo sat poised with the calmness of a queen who thought she could not be touched. The judge cleared his throat, gesturing toward the bench. "Miss Christie, please take your seat." But Jackie didn't budge. Her heels clicked with purpose as she moved to the center table, placing the leather folder down like a crown on a throne. And then, with a slow, deliberate gesture, she opened it. Documents spilled across the polished wood, bank transfers, text messages, secret photographs, voice memos, all the buried evidence she had guarded for years. Her voice, steady but laced with heartbreak, echoed as she addressed the court. "Your Honor, I am filing a formal civil suit against Douglas Christie and Malaysia Pargo for emotional damages, financial fraud, and the malicious destruction of my character over the course of 2 decades. The air froze. Even the judge leaned forward, lips parting slightly. Doug's jaw fell slack. "Jackie, please don't do this," he pleaded, but she silenced him with a hand slice through the air. "You don't get to speak today." Reporters in the back stumbled over wires trying to capture every second. A microphone clattered to the floor, but no one picked it up. This wasn't just a trial anymore. It was a volcano, seconds from eruption. "You want to know what betrayal looks like?" Jackie's voice quivered as she stood tall, hands pressed against the evidence. "It's watching the man you built. A kingdom with crawl into bed with the same woman who toasted at your wedding. It's sacrificing your youth, your identity, your entire legacy only to hear laughter behind your back, whispers calling you delusional." Her voice cracked again, the pain too raw to conceal, but the fire in her eyes burned brighter. "I stayed silent when the rumors started. I defended Doug when the blogs dragged him. I even tried to protect Malaysia's name for the sake of our sisterhood." She stepped closer to the table, her shadow stretching. "But I'm done playing." "Noble." Doug stood quickly, reaching toward her, desperate. "Jackie, it wasn't like that. Malaysia and I—" But the judge's bark cut him short. "Sit down." And Malaysia, still perched like royalty, chuckled softly. "You know," she said, her voice sweet yet venomous, "you always loved the performance. Maybe that's why he left. The real you was just too exhausting to live with." The words sliced deep. "And that was it." Jackie snapped. She didn't lunge with fists, but with words sharp enough to draw blood. "You want to talk performance? Let's talk. About the 10 years you played best friend while sneaking behind my back. Let's talk about the fake support you poured on camera while plotting to erase me." Her finger shot toward Malaysia. "You are no sister. You're a snake wearing my crown." The gavel slammed again, ignored in the storm. The courtroom was no longer a chamber of law. It was a war zone filled with venomous confessions and decades of betrayal erupting in real time. Doug's lawyer scrambled to speak. "Your Honor, this is emotionally charged and lacks factual grounding." But Jackie spun toward him, her voice slicing the air. "Then look at the facts." She grabbed the documents, flipping through them furiously. Bank statements showing Doug funneling money into Malaysia's boutique under Jackie's name. Voice recordings of them mocking her mental health. Emails from VH1 producers confirming how Malaysia's brand was built by cutting Jackie's screen time. Gasps echoed like thunder. And then came the bombshell that shattered what little restraint was left. Jackie reached into the folder and pulled out a crisp DNA test. Her voice trembled, but it was filled with venom. "Your Honor," she whispered, "this proves that Doug has a child. Not with me, not from a fling, but a child he's been secretly raising with Malaysia for 5 years." The judge's eyes widened. Doug buried his face in his hands, shame dripping off him. And Malaysia, still stone cold, smirked. "Of course I have a child with him. Why do you think he stayed?" Her voice cut like a blade across Jackie's soul. Her knees trembled, but Jackie didn't fall. She stood taller, fiercer. Her words came out sharp, her voice lowered to a whisper that shook the room. "You didn't just take my man. You stole 20 years of my life. My name, my dignity, everything I built. And now you're going to pay." The courtroom erupted into chaos. Reporters screamed into phones. Legal aides whispered urgently. Cameras flashed like lightning. But Jackie Christie wasn't finished. She straightened her shoulders, her chest rising like a soldier ready for her last battle. "I'm not here to beg," she declared. "I'm not here for closure. I'm here for justice. For every woman who gave everything to a man and got nothing but lies. For every sister who trusted another woman only to be stabbed in the back. For every fan who believed in a fairy tale that was nothing but smoke and mirrors." Her words shook, even the walls. The judge called for order, but it didn't matter. Her voice carried over everything. "Let this courtroom be the stage. Let the world be the audience, but this time, I control the narrative." She scooped her folder back into her arms, turned sharply, and walked out, leaving behind a silence, so heavy it weighed on every chest in the room. Outside, the storm had already arrived. Cameras swarmed like bees, microphones pressed into the air, and fans screamed her name like a rally cry. Hashtags erupted across social media in seconds. Jackie V's Malaysia, Jaws are 20 years stolen, Jaws Doug exposed. The internet split like wildfire. Supporters wept. Critics cheered. And inside the boardrooms of VH1, executives scrambled to contain the flames of the scandal they had spent years quietly feeding. But one thing was undeniable. Jackie Christie hadn't just filed a lawsuit. She had declared war. And the war for her legacy, her dignity, and her truth was only beginning. The echoes of chaos from the first hearing had not faded when the court reconvened. The air buzzed with anticipation, the kind that makes your chest tighten before thunder splits the sky. Inside, Doug Christie sat slumped at the defense table, a shadow of the man who once strutted around claiming loyalty, his tie loose, his eyes bloodshot, his entire image crumbling under the weight of receipts he never thought would surface. Across from him, Malaysia Pargo appeared composed, but for the first time, her armor had cracks. Sunglasses covered her swollen eyes, and though she still carried herself like royalty, the aura of untouchable confidence had dimmed. The world had already seen her smirk during Jackie's accusations, but now whispers swirled about why she looked shaken, and then came Jackie Christie, entering like a storm wrapped in silk. Black power suit, no glitter, no facade. Her hair tied back tightly, her face bare, but her presence brighter than any chandelier. In her right hand, a small flash drive glinted under the courtroom lights. She didn't wave it, she didn't flaunt it, but the way she held it screamed, "Try me." The judge didn't even need to call order. The room had already gone silent, waiting for her every move. "Today," the judge said firmly, "we will hear from Miss Pargo's team." Malaysia's lawyer, a man in a tailored gray suit, stood, with confidence that wasn't his own, but borrowed from the reputation of his client. "Your Honor," he began, voice steady, "we ask that this case be dismissed. These claims are exaggerated and have been weaponized as a smear campaign to destroy my client's livelihood. Miss Pargo did not commit fraud, nor sabotage any brand. She engaged in a consensual relationship with Mr. Christie after his separation from Miss Christie. The accusations presented are emotionally charged, but lack legal standing." A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Jackie Christie leaned forward, lips curling into a cold smile. She had been waiting for this dismissal plea, waiting for someone to try to brush off 2 decades of betrayal like spilled water. She rose without waiting for permission. "May I?" she asked sharply. The judge, weary but curious, gave her a nod. And then Jackie walked forward, heels sharp against the tile, plugging the flash drive into the court's monitor. The room went dark, then lit up with a grainy video. There, on the screen, Doug Christie paced inside a hotel room, panic etched into every twitch. Malaysia Pargo sat calmly at the edge of the bed, her tone collected. "If Jackie finds out we've been using her image to push your skincare line behind her back, we're done," Doug muttered. "The producers already think she's unstable. They'll bury her for ratings." Malaysia's response was a dagger, spoken with chilling calm. "Let them. The more she snaps, the more sympathy I get, the more product I sell. Don't worry, I already had her cut from next season's trailer. She'll look like the villain. I'll look like the savior. That's how you win in reality TV." The video ended. Silence drowned the room. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. The judge leaned back in his chair, eyes wide. The jury, still, taking early notes, froze mid-scribble. Not a cough, not a shuffle, nothing. Jackie Christie didn't smirk, didn't gloat. She simply turned and walked back to her seat, as if she had set the entire courtroom on fire and was content to let it burn. The lawyer stuttered, "Your Honor, we were not made aware of this recording." But the judge cut him short. That video alone justifies full trial proceedings for malicious defamation, brand theft, and conspiracy to misrepresent for commercial gain. Your client has serious charges to answer for. That was the moment Malaysia Pargo snapped. She shot up from her chair, voice sharp. "I'm not sitting here to be crucified because Jackie couldn't hold on to her husband." Her words sliced the air like glass. Jackie Christie stood too, her voice louder, stronger. You never had my husband. You had a lie wearing his face. And when you realized you couldn't beat me straight, you tried to erase me. But guess what? I'm still here. The judge slammed his gavel. Enough! His eyes swept the room like a warning. Then they landed on Doug Christie, who had been trembling quietly. Mr. Christie, you've been awfully silent. Do you have anything to say? The man looked broken, his shoulders heavy, his lips pale. Slowly, he stood and walked across the room toward Jackie, his eyes red, hands shaking. His voice came out barely above a whisper. I'm sorry for everything. I was weak. I let her get into my head. You built me. And I let you burn, though. World held its breath. Jackie stared at him long and hard, her silence louder than his apology. And then she laughed, not cruelly, but like a woman who had already buried her past and risen from the ashes. You didn't let me burn, she said. You tried, but I lit the match myself, and I rose stronger. You don't get to say sorry now. Not after this. Not after 20 years. Doug dropped his head, defeated, but Jackie wasn't finished. Her voice boomed with authority as she turned to the judge. My terms remain the same. Full trial. Full damages. I don't want silence. Money. I want the truth written in stone. The judge nodded solemnly. Then this trial will proceed. And Miss Christie, based on the evidence so far, the court will allow you to pursue punitive damages, media restitution, and brand repair costs. It was too much for Malaysia. She slammed her hands on the table. You think I'm paying her for being a victim? I built my name too. The judge cut her off swiftly. You may have, but you built it on hers. His gavel came down like thunder. Court dismissed for the day. As people filed out, the cameras and flashes followed. Jackie Christie walked with the posture of a queen, fans screaming her name outside. A young girl broke through the crowd, tears in her eyes. Jackie, you showed us we don't have to stay silent. You showed us they can't rewrite our stories. Jackie bent, hugged her, and whispered, they can steal your time, but they can't steal your voice. The internet would replay that clip a million times, dubbing her the woman who refused to be erased. But the story wasn't finished. Because somewhere inside the courthouse, Malaysia was fuming, whispering into her phone with a voice too sharp to be ignored. And Doug, sitting quietly in the corner of the hallway, looked like a man who had realized too late that every secret, every lie, every hidden receipt was about to come crashing down. The third day of court felt less like a legal proceeding and more like the finale of a show the whole world had been waiting for. Reporters lined the steps before sunrise, microphones raised, hashtags already trending before the judge even unlocked the chambers. Fans shouted in the streets, split into sides, some waving signs that read, "Justice for Jackie," while others clung to Team Malaysia, their voices echoing like chants at a sporting event. VH1 cameras lingered far back, nervous and careful, because even though they built their empire on these people's chaos, now they were watching their brand unravel in real time. And when the doors finally opened, the energy shifted into something unshakable. Jackie Christie arrived with the same storm energy as before, a flash drive clutched in her hand, her steps deliberate and her presence untouchable. She no longer looked like a woman fighting for scraps of dignity. She looked like a general carrying the final weapon in a war already won. Behind her, fans shouted encouragement through the glass doors, their voices muffled but their passion undeniable. Doug Christie shuffled in separately, shoulders bent, his face pale, the weight of public disgrace pressing him into the floor. He no longer looked like a man trying to save a marriage or even defend himself. He looked like a man crushed by the consequences of his own choices. Malaysia Pargo, however, arrived with 2 PR reps and a new lawyer, her sunglasses still glued to her face but her composure slipping in tiny cracks the cameras caught from every angle. The judge wasted no time. We are here to resume proceedings, he said firmly, eyes heavy as if even he knew this was no longer just about law. It was about legacy. Miss Christie, do you have further evidence? For a moment, silence filled the chamber, all eyes locked on Jackie. She didn't rush, she didn't stumble. She simply stepped forward, placed the flash drive on the table, and looked at the judge like a woman who had nothing left to lose. "I do," she said, her voice steady, almost calm. When the video played, the room fell into a darkness thicker than the night sky. Grainy footage filled the screen, but the voices were unmistakable. Doug Christie pacing again, his words panicked. "If Jackie finds out about the payments, she'll bury us." Malaysia Pargo replying coldly, her tone dripping with confidence. "She won't. I've already spoken to producers. They'll paint her unstable, cut her confessionals, and if she screams too loud, it'll only help me." Then came something no one expected. Another voice in the background. A VH1 producer, caught off guard, muttering about how Jackie brings ratings, but she'll never know the real storyline we've been cutting behind her back. The courtroom gasped, as if the walls themselves recoiled. Not only was Malaysia implicated, but the network itself was dragged into the center of the storm. The judge leaned forward, his voice cutting like a blade. "This court will investigate further into VH1's involvement in this matter. If true, this could extend far beyond civil damages." Executives who had quietly been sitting in the back of the courtroom stood up, whispering frantically as they rushed toward the exit. The cameras caught them fleeing, and within minutes the clips flooded social media, headlines screaming that VH1 itself was on trial. Malaysia Pargo slammed her hand down on the table, her voice sharp and panicked. "This is manipulation. She's twisting everything to destroy me. I built my own empire. I carried myself with dignity. I don't owe Jackie anything." But her lawyer tugged at her sleeve, whispering desperately because he knew the damage was already irreversible. The video had spoken louder than any denial. Doug Christie, for the first time, broke into full sobs. His shoulders shook, his face buried in his hands, the image of a man stripped bare in front of the world. The judge addressed him directly. "Mr. Christie, do you wish to respond to this evidence?" His voice was hollow when he finally lifted his head. "I ruined everything. I betrayed her. I let myself be led into lies. I don't deserve forgiveness." He turned toward Jackie, tears streaming. "You built me. You gave me 20 years, and I let you burn." But Jackie Christie did not flinch. Her eyes locked on him with the cold fire of a woman who had already moved beyond pain. "You don't get to write this ending," she said, her voice low but unshakable. "You don't get to hand me an apology now when you spent decades handing me lies. You tried to erase me, but I am still standing. And today, the truth belongs to me." The judge's gavel slammed down. "This case will proceed to full trial. Miss Christie is granted permission to seek punitive damages, restitution for brand sabotage, and reparations for emotional distress. Furthermore, the court will issue subpoenas to VH1 and its executive team to provide internal communications regarding the allegations raised." The courtroom erupted into chaos again. Reporters calling editors, fans screaming, the internet exploding within seconds. Hashtags like VH1 exposed and Jackie controls. The narrative shot to the top of trending charts. As the court adjourned, Jackie Christie rose slowly, gathering her folder, her flash drive, and the remnants of her dignity that had now transformed into unshakable power. She turned toward the sea of cameras waiting outside, her expression steady. Reporters shoved microphones forward, desperate for sound bites. But Jackie didn't rant, didn't cry. She simply said, "They thought they could erase me, but I held onto the truth, and now the truth holds them." Her words echoed like prophecy, replayed across newsreels, Instagram reels, and TikTok edits within minutes. Malaysia Pargo stormed out separately, shielded by PR reps, her silence louder than any denial she could have given. Clips of her storming face went viral instantly, fans stitching videos of her calm smirk from the first day beside her crumbling exit on the third. Doug Christie, escorted out quietly, looked like a ghost of himself, his fall from grace complete. And VH1, once proud of turning Betrayal into entertainment, now faced a lawsuit that threatened to reveal how much of their empire was built on manipulating pain into profit. Outside the courthouse, the chants grew louder, the fans closer, until Jackie Christie finally stopped, turned, and addressed them directly. For every woman who was told to stay silent. For every sister who was stabbed in the back by someone she trusted. For every fan who believed in me when I doubted myself. This fight is for you. They can steal time, they can steal love, but they cannot steal your voice. The crowd erupted, tears and cheers mixing as strangers embraced like they had all been part of the same story. Clips of her words spread like wildfire, turning into memes, motivational posts, and global headlines. She had not just reclaimed her dignity, she had become a movement. And yet, there was one more card left in her hand, one more mystery that kept fans awake at night. That footage Doug had begged Malaysia to hide, the one he whispered about in... That voicemail still hadn't been revealed. Rumors swirled. Was it financial corruption? More hidden children? A secret producer deal? Or something darker? Jackie Christie had not shown it yet, but the glint in her eyes promised the world that when the time came, she would. The courtroom battle was only the beginning. The takedown of Doug Christie, Malaysia Pargo, and even the VH1 machine was far from over. And as Jackie disappeared into the crowd of flashing cameras, one thing was certain. She was no longer the woman they tried to erase. She was the woman rewriting the entire script.